Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I gotta say is, who that? Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Raise this up a little bit. Thank you all so much for being here on this Tuesday afternoon. I know that this is a show that's a little bit of impromptu, but y'all know how I do it, man. We just pop up on you. But thank you so much for being here. If you are watching this live, ask that you hit the like button. If you're watching this later on, I guess you will be considered an after show boy, after show girl. So I guess I got to go ahead and play this.
Shots out, shots out, shots out, shots out, shots out. To them after show boys. Shots out, shots out, shots out, shots out, shots out. To them after show boys. They be tweeting and be posting. They be tweeting and be posting. They be tweeting. Yeah, them after show boys. They be tweeting and be posting. They be tweeting and be posting. They be tweeting. Yeah, them after show boys.
Shouts out to all the after show boys and after show girls out there. But let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about quarterback Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback that will hear his name called in this year's NFL draft. And we're also going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints holding a private workout with Jalen Milroe. And, Jalen Milroe, to me, sports fans, Who That Nation, he's been a guy that been flying under the radar. I was looking at Jalen Milroe during the NFL Combine, and you think about like all of the quarterbacks that were at the podium when I was in Indianapolis, and you've seen a whole bunch of quarterbacks, whole bunch of reporters over by quarterbacks like Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, and there were little sprinkles of reporters over by Jalen Milroe, and a lot of talk was, being exchanged about his pro day. Well, not his pro day, but it's the Senior Bowl, where he didn't look the part. Like, a lot of passes that he threw were in the dirt. He overthrew some receivers, and people were saying that I don't know about him. But Jalen Milroe is a guy who works really hard. If you just listen to him speak, you can tell he has the right makeup. He's a really good leader, and he's a great athlete. And he's not a guy that most people would consider a first-round pick, even though reports are saying that he will be in Green Bay for the NFL draft. I don't know if I would want him to do that if I was his representation, because everybody pretty much is saying that he's going to be a second-round, third-round pick. So why, send him out there if that's the case? But, this is right. But Jalen Milroe is a talented guy. And some scouts feel that if he is placed in the right position, then all of that talent that he has, all that ability that he has, a team will be able to benefit from that. And, you wonder to yourself, could the New Orleans Saints be that team? I know he is not the guy that most fans would like to see, but when you think about head coach Kellen Moore, and I spoke about this on on the last episode, he is well within his rights to select the guy who he wants. And, he does have certain characteristics and ability that resemble that of Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was kind of looked at the same exact way. People question his accuracy. People question his ability to be able to play the quarterback position at the next level. He was a second-round pick. But as we can see, Jalen Hurts turned into a pretty damn good quarterback, and this could be the case with Jalen Milroe. Now, some people will look at Jalen Milroe's stats last season, and they look at the touchdown to interception ratio where he threw 16 touchdowns and he also threw 11 interceptions. And people would say, man, well, he struggles with accuracy. But I can make an argument in saying that maybe the new addition of head coach Kalen DeBoer could have played a role in that. Now, we know when we look at where DeBoer came from, University of Washington, he had Michael Penix as his quarterback. Michael Penix is a drop back quarterback. He's a guy that's not looking to run. Now, he has the ability to do so, but he is trying to carve you up in the pocket. And we know that Milroe, that is not him. He's not a guy that's trying to carve you up in a pocket. So you look at his stats when Nick Saban was the head coach, and, the stats pretty much, were pretty doggone good. Like I'm looking at his stats in 2023. He completed 66% of his passes, 2,834 yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. He also had 531 yards rushing on the ground and 12 touchdowns. Now, last season, he had 20 touchdowns to add to his 16 passing touchdowns. So this is a guy who is an athlete. So it seems like Nick Saban had a plan for him and was able to utilize him in a way that benefited Milroe. But when DeBoer came, some people thought that Milroe might transfer. He decided to stay at Alabama. And you have to wonder to yourself, would he have been in a better position if he would have went to another university that probably would have catered to his strengths? I mean, who knows at the end of the day, but I like the kid. I think that he's made of the right stuff, but he is a work in progress, which leads me to my next point. And this argument is mostly for the individuals that may feel, I guess, opposite of what I said when it comes to Shedeur Sanders on the last episode, that if you have a quarterback in waiting, you draft a quarterback, Milroe could possibly be your guy, and you don't have to worry about him being the next guy right now. He can develop in a Kellen Moore system, develop him into being the quarterback that he needs to be. The organization understands him. He understands the organization. And by the time you figure out what's going on with Derek Carr, then maybe Jalen Milroe will be ready and available for you. I think that that's a plus that the New Orleans Saints are holding a private workout with Milroe. It just tells us everything that we need to know, that the New Orleans Saints are in the quarterback business. Now, where they decide to pick that quarterback, only time will tell. But look, I don't have an issue with Jalen Milroe. Some people do. Some people just feel like maybe his skill set is not going to translate to the NFL. But this is the new wave of quarterback that's coming out. Those hybrid super athletic quarterbacks. We've seen it in years past, like with guys like Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. I mean, these guys are stating their claim. The passing quarterback just dropped back, looking through the progressions, they are starting to die out. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a place for those type of quarterbacks, but you have to have the ability to be able to move outside of the pocket. And also, as time goes on, I feel like you'll start to have more and more head coaches that are going to be able to cater to the strengths of those quarterbacks. I think the older coaches, no disrespect to them, I just think that it took them a little while to be able to get on board because maybe they're used to a more traditional way of playing the quarterback position or coaching the quarterback position when it comes to their coaching skills. So I just think that the more we start to see some of these coaches like Kellen Moore, like the Sean McVays, like the Mike McDaniels, those young coaches that kind of seen everything new under the sun and are looking in the nooks and crannies of these high schools and collegiate programs to try to find ways to be able to make themselves separate themselves offensively from the pack. I think that you are going to see more and more comfortability for these type of quarterbacks like Jalen Milroe. But Jalen Milroe is not a quarterback, in my opinion, that's going to be a day one starter. He's not going to be a guy that's probably going to give you what you need right away. But in the right situation, all the prognosticators and scouts are saying that he has the capabilities of being a very special quarterback. And I do think that some quarterbacks do need to sit on the bench. I can remember growing up as a kid. I mean, seeing a day one starter coming out of college to the pros was just unheard of. Like, you would draft a quarterback and you probably wouldn't see that quarterback for 2 to 3 years. But we know that quarterbacks in the modern day era are in high demand. Fans don't want to wait for a quarterback to be able to go out there and develop and be what you need them to be for years to come. They want that instant gratification. Like, nobody wants to wait for the souffle to cook, right? They want this thing to be ready, hot, and on the plate. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. And also, the pressures of being that first round draft pick, everybody's looking at that first round draft pick as the future of the team. So if that quarterback doesn't work out that you may have on a team that maybe be that bridge guy, everybody's clamoring for the next guy who you drafted in the first round, and he may not be ready, but fans aren't trying to hear that. When you look at Jalen Milroe, he's not going to fall into that category. Well, at least most people feel that way, and he'll have an opportunity to be able to develop. Now, it all depends on what the New Orleans Saints decide to do. And like I said, this is more so for the people that feel as if, the Saints don't need to draft a quarterback in the early rounds. Now, my argument when it came to Shedeur Sanders was, if the Saints felt like those injuries played a role last season and they're not going to be in that position in 2026, then maybe you need to draft that quarterback of the future, because your draft pick this year is higher than the one that you'll have next year when everything kind of figures itself out. Now, if for those that may not feel that way and probably feel like you can get a quarterback and maybe, with the 15th, 16th, 17th, or 18th pick, something in that territory, then maybe you want to draft someone in the first round that you feel like you can add to your defense, right? Somebody like Jalen Williams, someone like Michael Williams, somebody like that, somebody that's going to come in and be able to give you levels of success, right? Somebody like a Malachi Starks or something like that, if you want to go that route. So maybe you can draft that player with the 9th pick, and Jalen Milroe can be there for you maybe in the 2nd round or even in the 3rd round. But all I know is the Saints should be in a quarterback business, because when you look at Derek Carr, there's a strained relationship. I don't care what the organization is trying to withhold from us. It's pretty obvious that the guy has some issues when it comes to the team, and the fan base is not fans of Derek Carr in that way. And, you have to believe that a separation is coming sooner rather than later. So what are you going to do? And once again, no disrespect to Spencer Rattler, but he hasn't solidified himself as the successor for this team. He has not made himself, evident to the masses that he is the future of this franchise. So until proven otherwise, you got to continue to try to find the right guy, because, the more, you wait for this process to, take place, the further, the further back is going to be. Like, you can't prolong this process. There we go. The longer you prolong this process, the further away you're going to get from stability. And, we're starting to get further and further away from that. I mean, Drew Brees is going into what year 5? He'll be eligible for the Hall of Fame next year. And the Saints still haven't found the definitive successor to the quarterback position. So they have to figure this thing out. And it's also only right for the New Orleans Saints to allow Kellen Moore to be able to select the quarterback if he feels they need one. They don't need to say, oh, we got Jake Hayner, we got Spencer Rattler, we got Derek Carr, here's your guys. No. If you're going to allow a coach to come in and try to change your misfortunes, because in most cases, if you are picking a new head coach, that means that your team wasn't successful. You got to allow that coach to be able to coach the team the way that he wants to coach them. So Jalen Milroe, don't have an issue with that at all. Just going to be one of those, it's going to be one of those, sit in the oven type quarterbacks. Like sit them in the oven. You gotta be a slow roast here. Like people got to be patient. Something that I don't feel like most sports fans have. But I think that he has talent. I think that he has ability, and he has something going for him. The fact that nobody is going to expect for him to be a day one starter. Let me go ahead and read some of your comments. I don't know about Miro. He might be on some Taysom Hill time. Yeah, I mean, he could be. I mean, if you want to utilize his abilities right now, until you figure it out, what you're going to do with him or what you actually have, I mean, you can do that because, I mean, we seen that in Lamar Jackson's first year. When Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, they had a package for Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson would come in spurts. He wasn't starting. He'll come in spurts, and, he'll do his thing. Towards the end of the season, he got in and he started. But, I mean, we know that they went to the playoffs and Lamar Jackson did not look good. I mean, it was to a point where they were booing him and they wanted Joe Flacco to go back into the game. So, I mean, but we know that experience and those things that transpired in his rookie season kind of, made him the quarterback that he is today. That's why, if a guy is going through situations and mistakes, we are so quick sometimes to just write those guys off, but still got to give these guys an opportunity. Now, like I said, what I feel about the quarterback position, it has nothing to do with how I feel about Spencer Rattler. I do feel like Spencer Rattler needs to get, an opportunity to be able to go out here with the ones and see what he actually can do before we just write him off and say, it just don't pan out. But I also feel like if we're talking about embarking on a new frontier when it comes to the starting quarterback position, because more than likely this probably is Derek Carr's last season with the team, unless he just goes out there and just plays out his freaking mind and he just makes himself undeniable and you got to make a deal with him. You don't have that starting quarterback on your team. So until then, you got to have competitions. You got to make sure that iron is sharpening iron until you find that guy. So, until you figure that out, keep on trying. I like Kyle McCord, best arm in the draft to me. Yeah, I like Kyle McCord too. Played at Ohio State, went to Syracuse, had Syracuse in the best position they didn't been in since, I don't know, since Donovan McNabb was over there with it's been a minute, but yeah, he is a really talented quarterback, and it seems like the New Orleans Saints, have him on their radar as well. I mean, his name has been linked to them, when it comes to like working out and some of the things that I've heard when it comes to him. But he's not going to be he's another guy that's not going to be a number one draft pick. You'll probably hear his name in the second or even the third round. But if he's there, I mean, and the Saints are picking and he's still available, I mean, you could take a flyer on a guy like Kyle McCord. Let's see, Sanders over Milroe for sure. Yeah, I mean, look, if it was up to me, yeah, clearly you would want to go with Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, to me, is more of a better, quarterback when it comes to going through his progressions and, pocket awareness at this point. Now, we're talking about overall athleticism and ability. You got to give that to Jalen Milroe. But all of these quarterbacks are works in progress. Some people, have been saying, I don't like Shedeur Sanders. You don't know what he's going to be. We don't know what any of these quarterbacks are going to be. Like, hindsight is 20/20. Like, no, as great as the scouting report was for Patrick Mahomes, it was no guarantee that Patrick Mahomes was going to be what he is today. I mean, Josh Allen, he played out in Wyoming, for God's sakes. Like, nobody knows what these quarterbacks are going to be. We are basically forming our judgment sometimes in hindsight. And that's not fair. Like, you can't say, oh man, his ability is not going to translate to the pros. Like, you can't. You can't say that. Like, you can make that assumption, but until it actually comes into fruition, you don't know. I just don't like the fact how people are just saying about quarterbacks, oh, that just ain't gonna work out. Like, how do you know? Like, how do you know that is not going to work out? We know all the time. We see this all the time, unless you just don't pay attention to it, that it matters where a quarterback goes. Some of these organizations, man, they ruin quarterbacks. Like, we gotta be honest with ourselves. Like, sometimes we expect these quarterbacks to rise above their situation, and sometimes they do. But these organizations are ruining these quarterbacks. But we don't want to have that type of conversation. Like, look at Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 pick in the draft. He get drafted to the Cleveland Browns, and people thought that his career was over. Now look at Baker Mayfield. Since he has been the starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have won the division every single year. You may not want to hear it because he plays in the Saints division, but it's a fact. Now, what would have happened if, Tampa would have been like, man, Cleveland, like, man, he played for Cleveland. Look how bad he was. And they didn't give him an opportunity. And he journeyed around after that. He went to Carolina. He went to Los Angeles with the Rams, and then he went to Tampa. Sometimes the organizations ruin these quarterbacks. Now, sometimes these quarterbacks, they ruin these organizations. Rather, it's not them putting forth the effort. Rather, it's not really listening to, what the coaches are telling them. But it takes a collaboration, in my opinion. The organization's job is to make sure that they're selecting the player that fits their skill set, and a coaching staff that has a willingness to be able to utilize the strengths of these quarterbacks. And that quarterback has to work lock and step with their organization in order for them to live up to their full potential. So we don't know. Like, we can't just criticize a quarterback when we have seen these organizations that they have played for over and over again select quarterbacks and don't do right by them. We don't know what these quarterbacks are going to be. Like, I know that we all want to, throw something against the wall, hoping that it stick. And then maybe 6-7 months from now, we want to pull up that tweet, or we want to pull up that post where we said this team needs to select this person. And hello. Man, every time I move my hands, the camera, I have a motion camera, and it moves with me. I'm just hoping like one episode where I just come through. There we go. Yeah, I just come through, and then we just have like a perfect episode where, but I talk with my hands. So when I talk with my hands, it picks it up. But anyway, these organizations don't do these guys any favor sometimes. And, we look at these quarterbacks, and, we expect for these quarterbacks to be everything, and they do have the capability. But when are we going to start looking at these organizations and saying to ourselves, like, man, this organization is failing this player. This organization isn't doing right by this particular player. And, I just think that we give these organizations way too much leeway, and we see time and time again that these organizations are failing these players. So you got to go to the right situation. You got to go to the right situation, and you got to go to an organization that is willing. If they don't have the coaches, they're willing to make changes to the organization in order to benefit that player, in order for him to be able to find success. Milroe didn't throw a passing touchdown the last 2 months of the college football season, only rushing. Yeah, that's facts. 100. Yeah, I mean, but once again, how is it that a quarterback one season with one coach can have 23 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and then another coach comes along and he has 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions? You ever just wonder to yourself, like, the easy thing for us to do and the lazy thing for us to do is for us to just write that player off. Oh, he's not good. Man, okay, let me use this as an example. You work at a job and you can be good at the job, right? Let's just say that you're supposed to use some type of equipment in order to have success at your job. But the boss doesn't give you the right proper equipment in order for you to be able to do your job effectively. And he goes back to you and say, man, why isn't this done? What are you going to say? Well, I don't have this tool. I don't have this equipment in order for me to be able to do the job. And he looks at you and say, no excuses. What are you going to say? You're going to be like, man, what are you, crazy? All I'm saying is the guy just didn't automatically just become terrible. We got to look at the circumstances. We got to look at the situation that player was placed in. Now, sometimes it could be that the player has regressed. That happens. But you also got to look at the fact that a new head coach has come in. The last time we seen this coach have success, he was in the national championship game at the University of Washington with a quarterback that was completely different, had a completely different skill set from a Jalen Milroe. So you can't just write him off and say, oh man, this dude ain't good enough. Like, I just think that that's lazy. We got to think about what type of coaching was it? What type of scheme was it? Was it like a good fit for him? And maybe it wasn't. So I don't want to just write him off and say, oh man, he just not good enough. Like, I just think that it's up to an organization, it's up to a college program to be able to find a skill set that is comfortable for that quarterback if he's going to be your guy. So maybe he can go to an organization. I'm not saying the Saints. Maybe he can go somewhere where they have a coaching staff that is willing to put a coaching staff around him that caters to his skill set, and he might end up being good. So I don't know, man. I don't want to do that. Says, not going to lie, this draft is the best since 2015 if we're talking prospects. Yeah, they got a lot of talented players in this draft. We've been kind of focusing on quarterbacks over the last couple of days because we seen the Saints, organization, some of the top brass, show up to some of these pro days of these highly profile quarterbacks. So you have to have indication, they're indicating that, they're going to draft a quarterback at some point in the draft. So, but there's a lot of talented players that are, 9 quarterbacks that are in this draft. They're going to hear their name called. And, if the Saints don't go with a quarterback early, they're going to have themselves a really talented player. Like, if you're picking number 9, you're going to get a really good player at that position. You're going to get more than likely the number 1 player or the number 2 player at that particular position. So it's still a win nonetheless. Cartel says, side note, I don't know who needs to hear this, but get your butt in the gym after this live. You heard me. Yeah, Cartel. Yeah, look, man, that's some of the best that's some of the best feeling that you're going to have going to the gym and working out and getting yourself in shape. I've been really going at it over the last couple of weeks, man. Just changing up my diet, going to the gym consistently. I mean, it helps me mentally, helps me physically, so yeah, somebody need to hear that. They definitely need to, man. I want to tell you this. I'm glad that you spoke about this, and we'll move on. One person that motivated me, honestly, was LeVar Ball, man. I mean, if you've been following LeVar Ball, you know that he had to lose his leg, man. And you know, me being a type 1 diabetic, you know, it's something that I don't think I ever like really focused on. Why does this thing keep moving? See, every time I move my hands, man. Anyway, being a type 1 diabetic, you know, it was something that I just never like came to grips with, you know, like, I mean, I didn't even really want to use it in my vocabulary, but it was just something I guess I was just in denial with. And, you know, I just seen like how positive he was and how, you know, even though, you know, this was a life-changing situation that happened to him, you know, like he didn't let it get him down. And, you know, like he was always, you know, he's so positive. And I'm like, man, you know, it just really motivated me to be able to like try to change some things about my diet, change some things about my life. And, you know, it really helped. So that's what I've been on for the last couple of weeks. And also just finding other interests like, you know, meal prepping and cooking and stuff like that. So just wanted to acknowledge that, man. For those that are out here, you know, with you know, dealing with diabetes, dealing with hypertension, like, man, I know sometimes that can get you down. You know, you don't feel your best sometimes. That energy isn't where you need it to be, but you know, don't let those things get to you. You know, it can get to you very easily. It can cause anxiety. It can cause depression. I'm speaking from my own, you know, personal experience here, but make sure that, you know, you're doing the right things, you know, and take it one step at a time. And don't just try to do it all the way cold turkey. Try to find substitutions for things that probably are part of your routine. Just sub it out. You know, I think sometimes people just have a hard time with dieting because, you know, they try to just cut things out cold turkey. Like there are healthy replacements that you can have, you know. But just wanted to put that out there, man. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. Strolling down says Hurts with Alabama and Hurts with Lincoln Riley were two totally different players. Yeah, they were two totally different players. You know, but I mean, I just think that Jalen Hurts was very underrated as a passer. All, you know, like from the beginning. I just think that people were just you know, infatuated with his ability to be able to scramble, and they just thought that that was just him. But I mean, he's always had that ability to be able to you know, pick you apart from the pocket. And you know, shouts out to the Philadelphia Eagles. They have worked with him throughout the years to, you know, put him in that position to be able to be the quarterback that he is today, being a Super Bowl champion and MVP. Saints can ruin a rookie and a free agent quarterback. Yeah, I just think that Dennis Allen and the coaching staff that he had just wasn't a really good fit for a quarterback. I just think that you know, no disrespect to Clint Kubiak, but I just think that they are probably better with an already established quarterback. They can put together a plan. I just question their ability to be able to develop players in general, you know, let alone a quarterback. But I have a lot of trust in Kellen Moore because we have seen the development of quarterbacks under his tutelage, right? We seen it with Dak Prescott. We seen, you know, Justin Herbert, you know, kind of establish himself. And also Jalen Hurts had his best season statistically from the pocket analytically under Kellen Moore. So he has a track record of being able to establish a rapport with these quarterbacks, and also his ability to be able to adapt and be able to formulate an offensive game plan based around the strengths of whatever quarterback that he has, which I feel like is something that is a plus. You know, to me, Sean Payton, he took it a little bit further. Sean Payton had the ability to be able to not only do that with quarterbacks, but also players around the quarterback, the running back, the wide receivers, the tight end. He was able to, you know, set up these players for success. I think that Kellen Moore can do that. We know that Kellen Moore, throughout his time as offensive coordinator, he was kind of pass happy, right? But when he realized that he had a special player in Saquon Barkley, he didn't throw the ball as much, right? They still threw the ball, but they realized that they had a thoroughbred. So you don't keep that thoroughbred in a barn. You let him go out there and run, and that's what he did with Saquon Barkley, which I think that what really separated him from the pack when it came to the head coaching search. So I think he can do the same thing with a quarterback. I feel a little bit more comfortable with Kellen Moore developing the quarterbacks that are in the room versus Dennis Allen, who is delegating that and hoping that the offensive coordinator that he has that ability to do that. I think that's probably why most teams gravitate towards offensive minded coaches, because they already have that coach that more than likely was a coordinator before they became a head coach, and he has that ability to be able to work with these position groups offensively and be able to develop those players. They have that experience. So I think Kellen Moore is going to be beneficial to guys like Spencer Rattler or whatever young quarterback they decide to bring in here. So I don't think that, unfortunately, I'll be shocked if Jake Haener is still on his team when the roster is put together. Whatever quarterback comes in, rather it's a Shadur Sanders, rather it's Jalen Milroe, rather it's a Kyle McCord, rather it's, one of these other quarterbacks that they're going to hear their names in some of these later rounds, I feel like they will be in really good hands with a Kellen Moore as the head coach and also as a quarterback whisperer and a guy that is putting together an offense, because he's going to look at these guys and more than likely he's going to draft a guy that he feels like he has a plan for. So it's going to be a plus for these quarterbacks if or when they select one. That's true. I just don't think it would be smart to draft a quarterback 3 years in a row, build on to what you have in other positions to help the team now, since they say so and win now mode. A quarterback ain't a need at 9. Jules, I mean, look, that's a good point. And like I said, man, I understand what people are saying, but I'm looking at it from a future perspective. Like, we're living in the now, right? I mean, we living in the now. What we think about the future, but I don't think the future in some cases are more important than what we have going on now. Like, if you got a bill that you need to pay, you can't be like, man, in the future, you're going to be focused on what's going on right now. You got to make sure that you pay that bill in order for these lights to stay on, this phone to stay on, etc. Right? So we focusing on the now. The way that we feel about this team, the pain that we feel is happening in real time. And it is basically not allowing us to be able to look towards the future. My goodness. But you got to be able to look towards the future. You got to be able to look towards, the now. And, you know what I'm saying? And also look towards the future, So in my humble opinion, I think that the New Orleans Saints, they need to take a look at the future, and they need to take a look at what's going to happen in the future, so by doing that, you got to be able to look at, this quarterback position. Let's pay attention to this, right? So we've already had this conversation about Derek Carr, right? Everybody's talked about Derek Carr and been showing up. Nobody really seen Derek Carr and wasn't at the press conference, etc. Right? Whispers about him not being happy and, and maybe wanting to seek a trade and maybe thought he was going to get cut and, be able to test free agency. We heard all that, right? So you're living in the now right now. If you're the New Orleans Saints and you think you're going to be in a better position in 2026, you're still going to find yourself possibly looking for a quarterback. You're still going to have to do that, right? Like, you're still going to have to face this. You can't just say, oh, man, well, Spencer Rattler, he played in these games, so we can roll in him. Like, Spencer Rattler shows some really good qualities in those games. He shows some flashes in some of those games. But at the same time, he hasn't, solidified himself as the future of this franchise. Like I said earlier in this episode, he hasn't. So you don't know you don't know if he's the future of your franchise. You want him to be because you believe in him, and that's good. But he hasn't shown that he is the future of this franchise. And until he does, you don't have this quarterback situation sold up for the future. You have to look at the future. The Commanders are happy because they feel like they have a future quarterback. The New England Patriots are happy because they feel like they have a future quarterback. The Buffalo Bills, Lord knows, they've been searching for Josh Allen. They have themselves a future quarterback. The Saints got to do that. So regardless, in my opinion, to whatever you do this season, rather you find success or not, you're not going to continue to have that success if you don't have that successor at the quarterback position. Like, we just wasting our time, to me. So you can go out here, you can pick this guy and pick that guy, and he'll probably work out for you. He'll probably be a beast. He'll probably feel a need. He'll probably give you more at a position that you didn't have in years prior. But you still have a very glaring hole that you need to fill, which is the quarterback position. Got to be able to fill that position. If you do not, then you're going to find yourself in this same spot that you were in 2024. So back to my original point of what I was trying to make on the last episode. We're talking about the NFL draft, where if you have yourself a top quarterback that's coming in from the collegiate to the pros, he's going to be drafted in the top 5. Let me go ahead and pull this up because I want to put this thing into perspective, because some people just think that, these quarterbacks are just growing on trees or whatever like that. Like they just, like, you can just get one anywhere. Like, you can just roll up to the store and just let me get 2 quarterbacks real quick. It just doesn't work like that. Let's go back to the 2024 NFL draft. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 2024 NFL draft, right? It was historic territory, right? So in that draft, Caleb Williams, quarterback, that's 1. Jaden Daniels, quarterback, that's 2. Drake May, quarterback, that's 3. Let's see, strolling down, Michael Penix, Atlanta Falcons, that's 4. JJ McCarthy, Minnesota Vikings, that's 5. Bo Nix, Denver Broncos. So look, check it out. So the first 12 picks were quarterbacks. The first 12 picks were quarterbacks. The first 12 picks were quarterbacks. So if you're picking in 17, 18, 19, all of the quarterbacks, like what we seen last year was historic territory. It's been a minute since we've seen those many quarterbacks come out and end up being as advertised. So you're going to have maybe 3-4 quarterbacks that are going to be picked in the first round. So if you're picking around 18, how are you going to attain one of those quarterbacks? And some people would say, well, the projection of Shadur Sanders, he would fall to 21 if the Saints don't select them, the Browns don't select them, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But at the same time, what are the chances of that happening if you say to yourself, oh, the quarterbacks next year are much better than the ones in 2025? Then guess what? If you are picking 18 or 19, you're not going to see that quarterback. So you're going to find yourself in the same position if Spencer Rattler isn't everything that you want him to be. So to me, you're gambling. Now, we know that, there have been second round quarterbacks that end up being franchise quarterbacks. Andy Dalton was drafted in the second round. Hell, Drew Brees was drafted in the second round. I mean, you had Jalen Hurts who were drafted in the second round. Right? So you have quarterbacks that have been picked in the second round who end up having stellar careers. But when you look around the landscape of the National Football League, guess what? The quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round probably been like a top 10, top 15 pick, for the exception of Lamar Jackson. They pretty much have been picked very early. Look around, right? Let's take out the NFC South. Michael Penix, Michael Penix was what? I just mentioned what he was, the 9th pick in the draft. You look at Baker Mayfield. He was the number 1 overall pick. Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick. Let's look at the North. Jared Goff, he was a number 1 overall pick. Caleb Williams, he was a number 1 overall pick. Yeah, you had Jordan Love. He kind of failed a little bit in the draft. But all these other quarterbacks, for the most part, you might find one. You might. But it has to take an unforeseen circumstance. Like the quarterbacks that are already solidified, maybe their team is picking, already. They feel like they already got their franchise quarterback. So to me, like you're gambling if you think that, okay, man, we'll be a much better team and we pick 18 or 19. And we're going to find ourselves the future of this franchise. Like, I just feel like you gambling. You also gambling even with the quarterback that we're mentioning, and that's a part of this topic today, which is Jalen Milroe. Thank you, Dalton. He was the 8th pick. I can remember 8th pick, 9th pick. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like if the quarterbacks that we've been talking about that we are mentioning, like these guys are picked in the top, top 10, maybe 12 or something like that. The ones that's just really running the league and ones that are really becoming the faces of these franchises. Big fan of yours, first stream I ever caught. Trey, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Welcome to the SOTS podcast. Trey, subscribe and join the family. Yeah, I appreciate it. I thank you for that, man. It means a lot. Booker says it's always the opportune time to draft a quarterback, especially if you don't have a franchise quarterback on your roster. Yeah, like, man, it all, like, I don't feel like there's a right or wrong answer to this. I just give my opinion on it. That's the way I feel, but I'm not objective to a person that feels like maybe the Saints just need to get themselves a linebacker, interior. Like, I don't have an issue with that. Like but I just feel like if you are the team that you think that you are, and just some unforeseen circumstances happened to you last year, and that's the reason why you just kind of fell off a cliff, and you believe that, then I just think that you need to carry yourself with a level of arrogance. Like, man, look, we ain't gonna be in this position again. So guess what? I'm gonna pick this guy right here. And I don't think there's a more important need to a team outside of maybe a left tackle than a franchise quarterback. And even with that, I just feel like if you have yourself a franchise quarterback, you have a promising future. So if you have that franchise quarterback but don't have that surefire left tackle, you can actually draft one of them. Like, you're not going anywhere if you don't have stability at the quarterback position. If you have a quarterback that's up and down, give you this roller coaster ride of emotions, you're not going to go anywhere. If you don't have a quarterback that you look at and say, that's my franchise guy, you're not going anywhere more than likely. Unless you have a bomb defense and a really good running game or something. Or a coach that can be able to just coach his way out of any situation. But it just, in those type of situations, they are hard to actually see, happen consistently. So I don't know, man. I'm just saying, if I know I'm not going to be here for a long time, like if I'm traveling somewhere and I know that this place is a staple, and I know more than likely I'd never come back to this spot again, then let me go up in here and see what they're talking about. That's all I'm saying. Like, I get it, man. Like, I think a lot of us just want the bleeding to stop. And we're just looking at it for 2025 because we just want to, we just want this team to stop sucking right in front of our eyes, and we want some better football to be watched, which I completely understand. But I just think that if you don't have stability at certain positions, you're just going to find yourself in this same position again and again. Like, you'll probably find prosperity. You'll probably be able to rise above the situation one year, but it's not going to be consistent. And I just think that when you have yourself a franchise quarterback, you're setting yourself up for continual success, more so than, oh, we got a quarterback, oh, he might be gone, oh, we might need to negotiate with him, oh, he left a lot to be desired. TJ, have you heard the hype around cornerback Quincy Riley out of Louisville lately? Any thoughts on him? I mean, I've heard, some things about him. Seems like he, kind of climbing up the draft boards, but I mean, I look at this cornerback class, all these guys to me, they have their pros and they have their cons. All of them are really athletic based on what I've seen at the combine and some of the things I've seen around these pro days. He's a work in progress. He has some strong points, but he's going to have to go to a really good team and and work alongside a coordinator and a skill position coach that be able to get the best out of him. But I think that there'll be a place for him on teams. But he's a raw talent, man. He has really good athleticism, but he also has some things that he needs to work on. So to me, I don't think that he's going to be a starter right away. If he does, it's probably going to be based on his athleticism alone. But I think that he can be a guy that can kind of just, as the weeks go by, probably can just thrust into the lineup and probably get baptized through fire. But I think that he could be a solid cornerback for you. He has all the traits and ability to be one. I wouldn't mind Milroe because he's so good in RPO and quarterback draws. Just his turnover last season lost us games. Yeah, I just think that maybe the offensive scheme just wasn't a really good fit for him. I just don't. Like, I don't think that guys just fall off like that. Like, I just think sometimes these coaches, they get a little bit too cute. They want their system. They want the system be ran their way, especially if it worked. Like, if they feel like it worked, it's hard for them to kind of come up off it, But I think the best role of a really good coach or somebody that resembles that is somebody that be able to adapt and understand what they actually have and utilize the strengths instead of just saying we're going to do this thing on some Frank Sinatra stuff, which is doing it my way, or on some Usher Raymond type stuff. Won't do it my way. Like, yeah, you want to do things your way, but also you have to be realistic about the situation. Rather, if you're going to deal with a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, you have to understand he has a certain skill set. And if you're not going to utilize his skill set the way that it needs to be utilized, then you're doing him a disservice and your organization, your team, your college, your program, what have you, a disservice. So I don't know. I just think that, it just wasn't a really good fit for him. I think that Nick Saban had a plan for him, and Nick Saban was able to adapt. And I don't think Kalen DuBois really adapt. I think he just looked at it like, man, look what I did with Michael Penix, and this offense works. Yeah, I can see that Rico, but I like Denzel Burke, bro. So yeah. I just, man, they got some talented cornerbacks out here, man. We all need to remember that this franchise does not have a culture of sustained success. We still trying to get there. Well, over the last few years, yeah, they have gained levels of, like stability. And we have to understand this. Like, throughout the, 50 plus years that the New Orleans Saints have been in existence, yes, they have been an inept franchise, right? But you got a really strong percent of a fan base right now that don't even recognize that. Like, I'm 38 years old right now, so I can remember like growing up when the Saints were terrible. Like, they didn't win many games and they didn't have stability and they were a snake-bitten franchise. But you have a nice percentage, especially like the social media age of fans who only remember the New Orleans Saints as having success. And these last 4 years are like, it's like, I guess, like the stock market crash of 29 to them after they just lived a bunch of years of prosperity. I think we got to just put this into perspective, man. Like, if I'm talking to a OG fan who probably around my age, I can talk to them and they probably don't feel like the sky is falling. They probably look at the Saints in a certain light. But, I'm talking to somebody that's like 25, 26, getting close to 30 years old. Like, they're their vivid memories of the New Orleans Saints is success. So it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a Saints fan that watched this team and vivid memories consist of the last 15 to 20 years, then they look at the New Orleans Saints as a team that has sustainable success. You're talking about a fan that's probably late 30s on up. They probably remember the Saints the same way that you're looking at them. But I just think it's a matter of who you're talking to. Like, sometimes, we sometimes forget that time waits for no man. Sometimes we take a look and be like, man, this is this way. And then you start talking to, somebody younger than you, and you're like, man, you don't remember that? Oh, you don't remember this? And it just kind of makes you, look at yourself. Like I'm talking to my son the other day. I'm talking to Paxton, and we're listening to a LeBron James interview, and of course, comments and stuff like that, come up about Michael Jordan and all that kind of stuff. And my son yells from the back seat, like, who is Michael Jordan? But when I'm talking, I'm like, I'm in shock, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, this is Michael freaking Jordan. But when you think about it, it's like, he wouldn't know who Michael Jordan is, right? Or, when I talked to my nephew years ago, I'm pretty sure he knows now, but he asked me, who is Michael Jackson? Sometimes, some things that we see and some things that we hear, I don't think we really have an appreciation of how far we've come as a human being sometimes, until you meet somebody that's younger than you that probably didn't grow up in the era that you grew up in. So that's all I'm saying. It says, sorry, TJ, you are not an OG, a little bit too young, my dude. Well, look, it depends on who you're talking to, though, Charles. It depends on who you're talking to. If I'm talking to maybe a 12 or 13-year-old kid, then to him, I'm probably an OG. But if I'm talking to like somebody that's probably in their 50s or something like that, then they look at me like, that I'm not. Like I said, it's levels to it. So like I said, when we're talking about prosperity, we're talking about a organization like the New Orleans Saints. When we talk about, sustainable success, it depends on who you're talking to. If we're talking to a 25-year-old Saints fan, he probably look at the Saints as being a stable franchise because that's all he can remember. But if you're talking to somebody, that's been up there and that have been through some wars with the Saints and have some battle scars, they'll probably say that they're not. And the crazy thing about it is they both would be right. Have you watched the tape on Josiah Stewart, the edge rusher out of Michigan? I think he might be a steal, probably in the fort, and could possibly be Cam Jordan replacement. I've seen some tape as well as looked at his scouting report. He's a raw talent, man. Not going to be a guy that's going to give you something that you expect right away. He has, once again, another athletic guy, that can come off the edge and in the right situation can end up like being something really, really good. But I think that more than likely, based on what I see, he's probably going to have to work himself into some type of role. My concern when it came to him, like just watching some of the things that he did was going up against some of those like large offensive linemen sometimes, man. I just feel like he kind of got bullied a little bit. But I just think that probably just will come with strength and conditioning. I think a lot of what he did, he was so athletic, he was able to like kind of compensate for, some of that. But when he was going up against some of those offensive linemen, man, at times, I just feel like he didn't win those matchups. But, that can come with better strength and conditioning. you know, as he gets that NFL style body, I think that he can probably work on it. And also in the right situation, you know, some of these pass rush moves, I didn't really see too many pass rushing moves in his repertoire. I just seen a guy that really had a lot of athleticism, and his athleticism kind of worked for him in his favor. But I just think that, you know, it's probably going to take him some time in order for him to kind of develop. But with hard work and the right coaching, I think that he can be on the field. But he's probably going to have to start off on special teams, or probably just being, you know, in some type of you know, specialty role if a team finds one for him. If TJ remembers the two Billy Joes the Saints had at quarterback, he definitely OG. Yeah, I definitely remember Billy Joe Hobart and Tolliver playing, not just like them by name. I remember them playing. Let's see. To be honest, I wouldn't even worry about an edge rusher this draft. If they could find a good run stuffer, I think this roster can manage. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely got to find some run stuffing defenders, especially if you're going to try to change your defense from a 4-3 to a 3-4. TJ, have you decided on a day for the Saints mock draft call in? Yeah, that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow. If you're watching this live, we're doing this on a Tuesday. Yeah, that'll be on Wednesday after Saints talk on Bleacher Report. So if you're not doing anything on tomorrow night, Wednesday night, come on over. We're doing a mock draft edition. So I'll have my mock draft going, and I'm going to open up the phone lines to hear a few of your mock drafts. Man, first of all, you got a great show. Man, I'm way down here in Zachary, Louisiana. And let me tell you, Sanders is the pick from here to New Orleans. Major culture change of the franchise, energy-wise. Fred, thank you very much. And I think you're from the hometown of Ty McClure, the offensive lineman who played for the Atlanta Falcons, who was I was on the Falcons podcast around the time when the Saints played the Falcons the first time. Yeah, but yeah, shouts out to Zachary, Louisiana, man. And thank you for tuning in, Fred. I really do appreciate that, man. Says, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind waiting on a running back and getting CJ Braxton out of Texas. I mean, look, Cartel, this is a deep running back draft. So whoever the New Orleans Saints decide to select that running back, hopefully it's Ollie Gordon the second. Man, that dude is good, man. Like, you know, I think there'll be a win regardless of what running back they get, because all these guys are talented. And, you know, you think about some of these guys, like, to me, I think the perfect fit would be RJ Harvey out of Central Florida, because he just reminds me of Mark Ingram, like, you know, and Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram had that special connection. So that would be my guy if it ain't Ollie Gordon. The running backs in this draft is deep. Which running back you believe would be a great? I think I already answered that. Ollie Gordon would be my first. RJ Harvey would be the next. And, you know, if you can get Quinshon Judkins, which I doubt that you're probably going to, you know, pick him, because he's probably going to be a early second round pick. But if you can get him, yeah. Damian Martinez would be the best running back for me. Yeah, he's talented too. Yeah, he's a talented guy. I mean, to me, man, I mean, you really got to screw it up in order for you not to find a decent running back in this draft. Like, you really got to be, you know, really screwing it up. Jackson State about to have their first ever first-round quarterback drafted. And, yeah, I know he went to Colorado too. Look, man, he went to Jackson State. You know, he went to Jackson State. And also, man, look, you got to also mention Travis Hunter too. You know, shoot, Travis Hunter went to Jackson State and won a Heisman. So a lot of Jackson State Tigers out there, you know, saying that, you know, a Tiger won a Heisman. They take a lot of pride in Travis Hunter winning that Heisman. TJ, let me ask you, if Shedeur Sanders comes to us and just proves everybody wrong and shock the world and bring us to a Super Bowl, how would you feel? Man, I feel great. You know, even if he gives the Saints stability, I think that he will give Saints fans, he'll give them a level of optimism they haven't had in quite some time. Look, I just think that the guy's talented. I know people just look at him and they, minimize what he can do, and they talk about, oh, he just Deion Sanders' son. But I really feel like we wouldn't even. I feel like him being Deion Sanders' son really hurts him in ways. I don't think we would be as critical of him if he wasn't Shadur Sanders. Like if he was Shadur Johnson or Shadur Hughes, as I said last episode, nobody. I think he'll still be critiqued, but not on the level that he's critiqued right now. I just think that the confidence that he has, and also combined with the fact that he is Deion Sanders' son, plays a role. I just think that if that wasn't the case, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But I do want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast on this edition. My final thoughts are very simple. If the Saints do draft Jalen Milroe, I'm not objective to that. I don't feel like any Saints fan should be, because he's not going to be a starter right away. I can understand the upside and the endless possibilities of drafting a guy like Jalen Milroe and actually pulling that out of him, what it can actually look like. We've seen it work with guys like Jalen Hurts, players like Lamar Jackson. We've seen what can happen when a team invests in those players. But it's going to take some time. And I think that, maybe the Saints are looking at it that way. They're a patient franchise. They're not really to just cut a guy. They're willing to give them some time in order for them to figure it out. It's not going to be a first round pick, in my opinion. So he's not going to have that pressure of being able to start and play right away. So that could be a plus. And the fact that the New Orleans Saints they scheduled that private workout with him tells us everything that we need to know. They believe in his ability, and there's a possibility that he can fit what they're trying to do. So I don't have an issue with that. But it's up to the New Orleans Saints and Kellen Moore. I think that he deserves the right to be able to select the quarterback that he can add to the room that's already a room full of guys that were there during the previous regime. But previous episodes of the State of the Saints podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. Now you can check out the audio versions. Now they are available to you. Also, you can subscribe to the channel. Please do so. Help the channel to grow. Check out Saints Talk with Timothy J. Jones every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Happy that on April 17th from 4 to 7, a special edition on Bleacher Report, a draft edition I will be a part of, representing the New Orleans Saints, talking about who I feel the New Orleans Saints will select. So shouts out to Bleacher Report for that opportunity. And also on Wednesday, immediately following Saints Talk, we're going to do our mock draft. So bring your mock drafts over. Going to open up the phone lines, allow individuals to be able to talk about the mock draft that they put together and why they selected that player. So that's going to be coming up. Also on Thursday, we got Smitty, representative of the Atlanta Falcons. He'll be on the podcast talking about, the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons will be doing that for the next couple of weeks, going around the NFC South. We'll start with the Falcons with Smitty next week. I'm trying to try to get James, who represents the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Clay, who represents the Carolina Panthers, to be on the show as well, to give us their thoughts and feelings and views about what they feel like their team needs and getting themselves ready for 2025. Also, we have a few guests that we're going to add to the show, as well as we try to come up with some times and days they can actually show up. So keep it locked here to the State of the Saints podcast. Got some good show lined up for you. Got some good things going on. Also, since I realized the date is official, April 17th with Bleacher Report, that means that we are going to have a live reaction show on the first day of the NFL draft. We will be having our traditional NFL draft reaction show here on the State of the Saints podcast. So we're bringing it back again, and one of the most exciting shows I feel like we do here. So got all that coming up for you. So keep it locked and make sure that you hit that bell for notifications so you won't miss anything pertaining to the State of the Saints podcast. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I gotta say is, who that?